this week's episode, we meet Deanna Diaz. Deanna is a New Jersey native who is known in the independent wrestling scene. Her wrestling journey began in 2017 when she was 16 years old. She was interested in watching wrestling growing up and was inspired by a lot of amazing women and men who put their blood, sweat, and tears into the business. With this passion, she decided to get trained and made her way through the indie wrestling scenes. Due to COVID, she was set back, and now she's making a return to the world of wrestling.
Welcome, everyone. I'm your host of the show. I'm the Color Jose, and today everyone is in for a treat. We have independent wrestler Deanna Diaz on as a guest. Hi, Deanna. How are you today?
Hi, I'm doing good. Happy to be on this podcast and being invited on. Can't wait to get into it.
Of course. You know, we are a big fan here of your wrestling style and your gimmick and how you make the crowd go crazy here on this podcast. So we thought it would be fun to get you on and to talk about your journey and how wrestling has been an impact to you and how you've returned to wrestling, due to COVID. So let's get into this episode. Can you tell us how you fell in love with professional wrestling?
Well, kind of started like younger, kind of looking into wrestling, looking at the women and the men. And I kind of just saw how much hard work they kind of put into it. And it stood out to me and I really wanted to do it. It's an entertainment thing. And it's like kind of once you start it, you can't forget about it. You always just have that itch to want to be in the ring. And just mostly about seeing the wrestlers in that ring that made me actually really want to do it.
What's a match that sticks out to you that made you fall in love with the sport?
I mean, I wouldn't say a specific match, but I could say specific wrestlers that stood out to me that made me really want to do it. And I just connected to them right away. I would say like maybe the Bella Twins, now that they are now considered the Garcia Twins because they went back to their actual name. But Charlotte Flair, Becky Lynch, Bayley, even like looking like at the like back then wrestlers like Stone Cold, all these people like I kind of just like looked up to, and it just is amazing what they've done.
The names that you've mentioned, that's a catalog of wrestlers that have made a monumental impact on professional wrestling. And, specifically, I'd like to highlight that you mentioned a lot of women wrestling. Women wrestling has changed in the past 10 years. There has been a revolution in wrestling for women, and it's awesome to see that not only the men can do it, but the women can just go out. And if not, sometimes you even be more entertaining than some of these men matches that are put on at the shows.
Yeah, 100%. Like, I definitely love that the women are putting in more of the effort to try to put women's wrestling more on the map and to try to put it out there. And it's just great. I just love how all these different matches are coming out with these women, especially from the difference of 10 years ago to now, or even longer than that to now. And it makes it, I wouldn't say easier, but it does change the game now for women and women's wrestling.
Yeah. You see matches like Charlotte Flair and Becky Lynch, or I'm a big fan of Damage Control. So you see like Damage Control and WrestleMania and the matches that they have, or Mercedes Moné and how successful she is. And, there's definitely been a shift in professional wrestling. And some of the wrestlers that you mentioned, their gimmicks specifically, like Becky Lynch, the man, right? Like that's the gimmick that she's going with right now. These gimmicks have something about them that draw us in. What is it about these gimmicks that draw you in?
They just come out with a pop. Like, it's amazing. And with also Charlotte Flair, she comes out and says that she's the queen. Like, she just knows what she's doing. It's all about the confidence I see with these women that they come out. And I think it's mostly that where the confidence factor comes in. And it teaches all these other women that are watching it that you could have the confidence too, and you could do this too.
That's definitely reflected in your part and how you walk to the ring and how you come out. I was studying some of your matches, and if my audience out there, if you haven't watched any of Deanna's matches, do yourself a favor, go on YouTube, search up Deanna Diaz, because she is a person that walks to the ring with confidence and does not miss a step when she goes inside the far side of the ring.
I appreciate you putting me out there like that. It's amazing. And I in this podcast, I really want to push you and I want to push me. I want to do everything that I can for you.
Yeah, we're here now talking about professional wrestling, which is such a meaningful thing to people like me and you because, like you said, you never fall out of love with professional wrestling. What are some of your favorite wrestling companies that have drawn you in recently?
WWE and has always been a company that has been standing out because they always have ups and downs. They always just know when to draw you in. But I also think that recently, AEW, especially since they kind of just started just a couple of like years ago, they have drawn in a lot of people. They have brought in a lot of wrestlers from the indies, from a lot of places. They give people chances, and so does WWE, and also Impact Wrestling. That is one place that I really want to get to one day. Also, even AEW, wherever I'm asked to come down, I would love to take the chance to do it one day, maybe sometime in the future when the time is right.
Let's put that into the universe right now. Deanna Diaz is going to be on one of the AEW Dynamite dark matches.
That just sounds great to me. I can't wait. Hopefully, I get on it.
These wrestling companies that you mentioned, nobody ever forgets how important WWE is because that's always the goal, right? For wrestlers. I feel like everyone says this all the time, even though AEW has opened up and it's definitely over the past years have proved itself. But I'm glad you mentioned Impact Wrestling because Impact Wrestling has been by far over the past couple years has been doing its thing. I early on would watch Impact when it was TNA, and there's always something special about putting on an AJ Styles versus Samoa Joe or watching the X Division that they had there and seeing Jay Lethal go back and forth with Ric Flair on a promo. Like Impact Wrestling is one of those wrestling companies that I think we don't really ever give them their flowers. So I'm glad you were able to give them their flowers by putting them over here. Because I think that company 100% deserves, all the recognition that they can get.
Oh, 100% they do. Like, you could see how much work the wrestlers put in over there. Like, the storylines that they try to put on. Like, it's just amazing. Like, they have something that's always different. It's never the same thing, I feel like, over there. And they deserve to be talked about. They deserve to be brought up.
Something to be said about the wrestling style that Impact Wrestling has compared to WWE. One thing that's much highlighted in professional wrestling is the different wrestling styles. There's a luchador wrestling style, there's a chain wrestling style. That's something that I think that people are drawn to when it comes to different wrestling companies is the superstars that they have and the wrestlers that are making a difference in the company and their styles of wrestling. In particular, what are some of your wrestling styles that inspire you and that are your favorite?
I think I've always been attracted to more of the hard hitting matches, not like really hard hitting, but like I just like the realism of it. I always do hard forearms, big chops. Like I've always made it or wanted to try to make it look real. And it's just my thing now. I'm a hard hitter. Like I'm like a brick wall, like kind of when it comes to certain moves. Like and I'm like a force to be reckoned with type of situation. Can't wait to keep using my story, my wrestling ability, and my wrestling type to go up against all these other athletes or to show who I am in the ring.
You did not say one lie in what you just said. Your psychology in the ring is one that I think should be noticed. You go in there and you literally beat people down. I've studied your matches and I've seen how much emotion and passion you put into going into a match, knocking someone down, giving them a heavy forearm, body flopping them. You go in there, you're brutal.
I try my best. Again, I think I was more confident in myself then too, before like also COVID kind of hit. And then I left wrestling for a little while. I was like on and off, and then I was fully out for another year and a half to two. And then it eventually hit me that, again, I want to come back. It never was a situation where I never thought that I wasn't going to get back into wrestling. But I do believe that there is unfinished business in this business for me. And I really do want to try to give it all I got. And I just want to put myself out there more. I want to be able to show who I, as Deanna Diaz, is.
Can't remember what year this was. I think this might have been a year and a half ago.
Right.
I sent you a message and I said, hey, I want you to be on my platform. Like, let's set up an interview. And you told me, I'm kind of had stopped due to COVID. And now that you're back and you have unfinished business, what do you mean by that?
It's honestly everything. Like it's all about wanting to make it. It's all about having that passion and pushing yourself to do what's best for you or what you could do better for yourself. And actually coming up on June 24th, I am going to be having a match at Intense Wrestling Alliance for the IWA Women's Championship. And it's going to be a triple threat with me, Shelby Waters, and Vicious Vicky. I am going into this match with, again, the mindset of unfinished business. And I do want to continue. I do want to grow. And hopefully that day I walk out as the Intense Wrestling Alliance Women's Champion. And even today, I am going to be at Titan Championship Wrestling, where recently I turned on my man in his last match and I joined the Deadly Sins. So I am trying to make a statement and put myself out there. I am trying to change the game. I am here to prove, even if I am not the best, that I will prove that I will maybe one day become the best. Or not even, maybe just become the best version of myself.
And you're ready for a fight.
Oh, I'm ready.
Knowing where you're coming from now and how you're just going to go in and become the best version of yourself. What is one word that you can describe this next part of your career?
Wow, that's a really good question. I have to think of that one. I'll say two words: change and growth, actually. So like I want there to be change, but for there to be change, there needs to be growth. There needs to, or even opposite, for there to be growth, there needs to be change. And those two words go hand in hand. And I want to change more things. I want to change things for women. I want to make more opportunities for women maybe down the line.
And in this business, change and growth looks different for every single person. For you, is it working on promos to get better at? Is it slowing down when you're working your matches? What kind of change and growth are you noticing in yourself?
I definitely know that I would have to change or have the growth of getting back into, I guess, the same mindset of how I was. Because sometimes growth consists of you having to take a couple steps back to see what's ahead. And that's what I feel like I kind of had to do, where you have to look back at what you used to do for you to know what you want to do later on. And I actually really want to think about of me getting my promos set, me trying to get my match mind ready. Like I feel like it's mostly a mental game most of the time when it at least comes to me. I don't know about any other wrestlers, maybe it's different, but I have more of like the mental state of like I have to mentally be there for me to actually really push myself and want to grow and change as a person. And I do want to gain more confidence in myself. I do want to break down barriers that probably other people or other women haven't done.
What would you say some of these barriers are?
I'm guessing maybe different types of matches that women haven't really done, or even barriers that haven't been seen yet. Maybe I'll create my own barrier to break down, maybe something different. But at the top of my head, I can't really think, but I do want more opportunities for women in this business. Because I feel as if, like, back then, I also feel it was really more of like a man's business, and it eventually kind of turned into women taking over it more and more each year or each time. It's just an amazing thing because, again, a lot of women have created that growth opportunity in this business. And I definitely want to be one of those people that people can look up to or see that I am also making a change too.
Change isn't easy, and it's a lot of hard work, passion, and dedication. You seem to have a grip on where you're going to take your career in the next few years. You mentioned working with different promotions, talked about Titan Wrestling. What are some promotions out there that you've yet to work that are on your bucket list?
Since I'm starting to get back into wrestling again, I definitely not want to start at the bottom because none of these companies are at the bottom, but I do definitely want to probably go to Pro Wrestling Magic. I want to start more humble. I want to work my way up. I don't want to be handed opportunities either. Like, I do want to show that I actually deserve to be on certain shows. I want to be X, like, kind of by them. Like, I'll hit them up myself in X also, but if I'm presented the opportunity, then I definitely would love to do it. But one of the places that are next, like, that I would really like to go to is Pro Wrestling Magic, maybe ISPW, maybe CCW. I would definitely like to go out there because that's in Florida, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, like those types of shows I would like to be on.
We can't wait to see what you're going to do in these next couple of years coming up. Change is coming, progression and growth is coming your way, and you've come so far in the last couple of years. Just take a step back as to your earlier days in wrestling. You knew you wanted to be a professional wrestler. You know that was a goal and a dream of yours. How did you find the school that was going to train you get to where you needed to be?
I honestly just looked it up, and I never thought that there was an actual wrestling school in the area that I lived in. Like, I never knew that there was, especially so close. The wrestling school was not even 5 minutes to 10 minutes away from me, which I was grateful to have. I was also grateful to learn my basics and learn whatever I had to learn to grow and become better. But I definitely looked it up. I found a school, and it took me a little while to kind of get into it because I was, again, only 16 at the time. I was just really, like, waiting off.
I like to take this moment to pause the episode and let everyone know Deanna Diaz has her shirts available on ProWrestlingTees.com. No, this is not a sponsor, but if you're enjoying her episode and want to further support her, go to ProWrestlingTees.com, type in Deanna Diaz, and purchase one of the many shirts she has listed on the website. I'm sure she would appreciate it if you did so. Oh, and one more thing. Don't forget to tag her in a post on your social media accounts. It'd mean that much more. Alright, let's get back into this episode.
And there might have been ups and downs, but then again, like, I won't regret it. I don't regret it at all.
And they say that after the first bump, wrestlers decide whether or not they're going to continue to pursue wrestling. It's not an easy thing to do. So many people look over the fact that all the wrestling ring is.
It's wood or padding, and then the mat. Like, sometimes these rings don't even have padding. They just have the wood and then the mat. It's insane. It just depends on what promotion you go to, what place you go to.
And even after that, you still decided that you want to pursue wrestling.
100%. And, like, there have been times too that people, like, I wasn't progressing on a certain thing. Like, there are people who have actually helped me grow. Like, they also at the same time were the kind of the same people who thought that I wasn't going to do it anymore. They thought that I was just going to quit. And I think that was another factor that I kind of put into my head, that anybody and everybody could have an opinion, or they might feel a certain way about you, but it's all about you at that moment because you are the person who joined in. You are the person who wanted to do this. And it's not even about proving people wrong. It's more about proving yourself wrong or to prove yourself right that you could do this and that you could push yourself to your limits or even past your limit.
Prove to yourself at the end of the day that you could do something. I think so many times we're our worst critic and our worst hill, for lack of better terms, when it comes to things we want to do. The age that you were at, training, 16 years old. At
Yeah.
16 years old, other kids are learning how to drive a car, getting a permit, but you decided to step inside a four-sided ring and take a bump and say, hey, I'm going to move on. And this is what I want to do. And nobody's going to stop me. I can't even tell myself that I can't do it because I'm doing it. That's
exactly
what you said.
You're exactly right. Like, that's just what it's all about. Like, there have been times that, like, I didn't even hang out with people because I wanted to go to wrestling or I wanted to put in the work, especially at that time of, like, me first joining and, like, me being at my first wrestling school. And it definitely puts a toll because, again, there are times that, like, later on, it could be a situation where you could regret not doing certain things because of you having to go to wrestling or having to do this or that. But it eventually becomes full circle, and it's just about investing in yourself and wanting to do better. And that's what I was striving to do at that moment. And I'm happy to be back. I'm happy to push myself again and to try and prove myself right that I want to push and be a better me, like I've said before.
And you mentioned some of these early days were challenging.
Very challenging.
Yes, to get into business and to know the ins and outs of it. What were some things that your trainers taught you early on that still stick with you today?
What sticks with me today is about just staying humble. Not keep your mouth shut, but also just really learn. You could learn. There's never a day that you won't stop learning in this business. It's always going to be a growing situation where even if the highest of like wrestlers, like maybe even like Charlotte Flair and Becky Lynch, Rhea Ripley, that's another match I want to have maybe one day if I ever given the opportunity. But like these people, it's all a growing process. It's all a mental process too. It's you're gonna learn no matter what. You're going to change no matter what.
And that's a testament to the business because every audience that you're wrestling in front of is different. You have to find ways to connect to your audience. You have to know, do I slow down my match? Do I speed it up? What spot are you going to do? Because these are important things. Spots in professional wrestling, deciding where you're going to, put someone through a table or you're going to body slam someone on a certain side of the ring is important to telling a story while you're in the ring.
It's very important to tell a story in the ring. It definitely puts on more entertainment. It puts on a show. For you to put on a show, you have to have that story. You have to have the entertainment there. You have to draw people in. You have to do all these things. It's like you have to think like as a wrestler too, like you have to think of a lot of aspects. You have to think about the crowd. You have to think of yourself. You have to think that it's all a mental thing most of the time. And that's why I always strive to have or at least try to have good mental health when it comes to being a wrestler too, because I also think that there are times that you should have a little bit of that disconnect with wrestling. So then you could have your time. And then also when there is wrestling, you have wrestling time. And it's just all about the balance. It's all about being okay with yourself and being okay with yourself in wrestling too.
That's a powerful message that you say there about disconnecting from wrestling because wrestling is an everyday life. You wake up, guess what? You go on Twitter, it's a playground. Wrestlers are going on there doing promos for upcoming matches. You listen to a podcast, might put on Busted Open Radio. Guess what? Wrestling. Turn on the TV, go on Peacock, wrestling. And it's important, like you're saying, to get away for a second from the thing that you love most, because I'm sure at time it can turn into something that you hate.
It becomes more of an overthinking process because I'm the type of person where I'll overthink a lot of things. That's when I realize that when I am overthinking about even certain things with wrestling, like maybe trying to do better in promos or trying to like do better in other things or even just being a better wrestler, it takes a toll on you mentally at times. But I do think that also stepping away from wrestling for as long as I did because of COVID, it makes you appreciate it more when you come back too. And even like just disconnecting mentally just for even a couple of hours or even for a day or two or even a week. I think it also makes you appreciate it in that way also. And it's just all about the appreciation of it. I never want to get into a situation where I will hate wrestling or I'll dislike it. And that's not my thing, and I don't want that to happen. So I do think that there should be that balance of your personal life and wrestling life. And a lot of other wrestlers out there, they might think differently. They probably just love wrestling, and that's okay for them. If they feel like it's okay mentally for them, that's amazing. But on my end, I feel like I need that disconnect a little bit because it makes me appreciate it even more.
And you mentioned taking a break and almost missing an opportunity. That's the thing with professional wrestling, that we see so many people injured still wrestling because if they don't, their spot might be taken. They might show up next week and they're not in the main event. Where if they would have worked through an injury, they might have been in the main event or even have some storyline that's a breakthrough for their career. It's not something that you can just put on pause. It's always going on, and it's a demanding.
Yes, it's definitely very demanding. It's no matter if you leave or not, the company is still going to go on. The stories are still going to go on. And it could take away opportunities, but then again, if these places really want you to be there and they want you to be in all these stories, they want you to change the game, they will give you these opportunities again once you come back, as long as they see that you are putting in the work and they see that you haven't maybe even missed a beat. But even then, like there are times that people do miss a beat when they do come back. But it's all about just putting in the work and showing that you want to be there and to become a better wrestler.
And it's something that is just not gonna come like rainbows and sunshine. There's a lot of practice when it comes to preparing matches. What is something that you do when you're about to go into a match and you know, hey, I'm probably not my best? Is it seeing the light at the end of the tunnel that gets you going when you feel like there's nothing left?
It's exactly that, actually. Like I just kind of mentally get myself together before I actually walk out to the ring. I mentally tell myself like, "Oh, this is it. I could do it. This is an opportunity. This could open doors. This will be a time that I will show off my skills that I have or my ability." And to be your own personal cheerleader, I would say, kind of, because you have to hype yourself up to kind of make yourself be more confident and get yourself out there and to do what you have to do.
And I'm sure that, you have your fellow wrestlers to do that too, but at the same time, they're focused on their performances, and what's going on. And you have to be your biggest cheerleader, even in your worst of moments. I'm sure you've had matches where it's like, oh, I could have done this different. I could have done that different.
Oh, 100%. You hit the nail right on the head. Like it's definitely that to the T.
To some extent, too, where you're wrestling and who you're around matters. Because if you're in a promotion where you feel like you are sucker punched out of opportunities and, not everything's going to be handed to a person, but you feel like, man, I just am not getting the recognition I deserve. It's those moments where you can be there for yourself and show up for you that matter.
Yes, I feel like I've actually definitely been there at one point with certain situations. And if a person feels as if they aren't used correctly or if they feel like there's more out there for them, I do believe that you can make that change and you could go somewhere else, or you could just wrestle somewhere else and be booked somewhere else. And I think that's okay. In the wrestling business, I think it's okay to travel out to as many companies as you like, as you want. And that's the only way that you're really going to learn too. Like, you need to go and learn and at all these different companies, and or to even just train or actually just wrestle on these shows for people who are getting booked on them. And it's all about coming down to the change of it, like how I've been saying this whole time. And that's all you need to do. Change creates growth.
You've been on cards with Davey Boy Smith Jr.,
Yeah.
Melina, who previously worked for WWE. These are all wrestlers that have worked for WWE. How have you interacted with these individuals?
Having these wrestlers come down from, like, after they were like done with WWE for a while, or even if they are done with them, like it's still a situation where I actually go up to these wrestlers and ask them for their feedback of my matches. I ask them, like, because I want to learn, I want to become better. And it's just an amazing opportunity too. It could open doors for a lot of people, like also by getting in contact with everybody and just being at different companies. It creates opportunities just in general.
A big part of pro wrestling is networking, right? You mentioned all these companies, and I'm sure you had to maneuver through going and talking to these people and saying, hey, I like to put myself out there, because no one's going to do it for you, right?
Yeah, you're basically you're your own advertisement. You advertise yourself unless you have people that could do it for you. But I've been trying to kind of do it more on my own. That's just how I've been doing it for a while now. And even the companies that I am in right now and I am wrestling for, they they advertise me also. They, it's all about finding the right people, the right companies, and to have the right mindset.
It's been a pleasure talking with you on here, and I've been asking a bunch of questions, and our audiences were allowed to ask you some questions. So I'm going to get into a couple of the questions that our audience members asked. So first off, the silverback underscore ape one asks, you are a former champion at a different place. Will you become a champion at IEW and TCW?
These are the places that I brought up before about me having matches coming up. I do hope at Titan Championship Wrestling I am presented that opportunity to go after the gold. And for Intense Wrestling Alliance that I will be on coming up, I hope I walk out as the Intense Wrestling Alliance Women's Champion that day. And if I could do it once in another company, I could do it again in another.
And they also ask, what is your goal in wrestling?
Is to just be my best self. That's pretty much it. Just to become my best self and to not let anyone else dictate who I am or what I will do with my wrestling career.
Taking charge of your journey is where everything else falls into place.
Exactly.
Man, it's been such a pleasure to have you on here, and I'm thankful that I got this opportunity to talk to you and have you be part of the Tcwspodcast. What are some last words that you want to leave with the audience before this episode ends?
Well, I would like to say, if you don't know me, you do now. My name is Deanna Diaz, and hopefully one day all of you will see me on other companies, because I will be making a statement.
Everyone, that is Deanna Diaz.